Welcome back in. Our medical expert, Dr. Pao Kohli, is with us this afternoon, and we've talked about this a bit. We've just seen so much new research about aging in the last few days.
And first, can you tell us, I'm so sorry, I don't even have my teleprompter, so this is live TV here. Alex is freaked out. No, but first, can you tell us a little bit about the study and what it means? And I know that these are a handful of studies, so we have a big body of research that we can go off of.
It's really fascinating. So for the longest time, we thought that being married was actually protective when it comes to cognitive function and how you age. But this is a new study looking at older adults, and being married was actually associated with a higher risk of dementia.
Really?
Yeah.
I can see that. Your partner drives you nuts.
Oh. Well, that's part of it. That's what they think anyhow. But if they look at people essentially who come in with mild cognitive impairment or a little bit of sort of the early beginnings of dementia, they don't progress as fast if they're single as opposed to if they're married. And then if you rank the people in terms of people who've never been married, they have the lowest risk, more than 50% lower risk of developing dementia. And then you have the people who are divorced or widowed right after, and the ones that are married seem to have the highest risk. So this was a bit of a, earth-shattering sort of news, because we've always thought that marriage was protective when it comes to our health.
Interesting. So why is this, dude?
I know.
What's
is it
going
what
on?
Alex said?
So you take a tiny grain of salt with this, because it could be association, not causation, meaning are married people doing something else that's making them have more dementia, either drinking more or not taking as good care of themselves, or what they're thinking is not participating as well in social networks, because you're so kind of wrapped up in your own life, you don't have as much time to sort of, meet with people and such, which can help delay dementia onset. Or is it actually causation, that there's something about being married that actually changes things that can lead to dementia? So we don't know which it is yet, but certainly is fascinating research.
It's definitely fascinating. And what about earlier this week, we reported on a new study from Stanford that talked about that technology usage actually can prevent dementia. How does that work?
Another sort of surprise, right? Because if you think about what we normally think when we say, oh, how do you keep your brain young and active? Well, you don't use the GPS, you don't use technology, you rely on your brain. But in older adults, we're sort of seeing the opposite trend here again, where people who regularly use technology have a 42% lower risk of dementia. Now, what was really interesting is if they broke down the types of things they're doing, the social media use amongst older adults was actually inconclusive. But all the other types of use, using your laptop, using your computer, reading the news, interacting online, actually was better. Now, we don't know if it's better because when you're using technology as an older person, you're firing more neurons, you're activating your brain a little bit more than just sort of sitting passively with the television, or because you're socializing more. Again, that social aspect comes through because you're interacting with your friends and your neighbors and what have you through online forums.
That makes sense. There's another study that came out at the end of March is basically linking healthy diets to a healthy, lifestyle, healthy aging. That seems kind of obvious, but what were some important takeaways that we might not just expect?
Well, we think about dementia when we turn 60 or 70. We need to start thinking about it when we're 30, because what we eat and what we do in our middle ages, which is that 40 to 60 year age period, and probably even younger in your 20s and 30s, really influences whether you go on to develop dementia. So we can control how we age, which is really novel, because for the longest time we thought, oh, it's just genetics and it's environment, it just kind of happens. How you eat is going to determine how you age. And what was really kind of sad about this study was that only 9% of people were disease-free at age 70, which means that 91% of us had some kind of chronic diseases at age 70. So again, another wake-up call for the young people, because we worry the most about dementia as we get older, but we can control it. We keep our cholesterol low, our blood pressure, our blood sugar, and eat the right things, exercise. We can actually make sure that we're making an investment in our future.
Can it be too late? Is there anything that the viewers, ourselves, can do right here, right now, in order to curb our risk of getting dementia?
Never too late.
Okay.
Never too late. And actually, there's a recipe of things you could do: eat, sleep, move, and no stress. You do those 4 things, socializing and being active, eating the right types of foods, you can really reduce the risk. Instead, what we're doing as Americans is reaching for processed food, reaching for things coming out of a packet, ultra convenient things that we know are going to increase our risk. And Alzheimer's is only one of the small types of dementia that we worry about, but certainly that's one of those where we're working on technologies. In fact, a new study just came out looking at blood tests that we can follow over time that will predict our risk of getting Alzheimer's. and how our diet and exercise changes those blood tests. So we're going to start to follow dementia tests just like we follow cholesterol tests within the next couple of years.
It's amazing.
All that makes sense. When you say no stress, though, that one, for me, I feel like easier said than done, right? Like, that's a hard one to control.
It's very hard, Alex, but you're taking years off your life because you're activating that fight or flight response, which can lead to all those, more sugar, more blood pressure, more cholesterol, all of the bad things, more weight. So we really have to learn how to rewire our brain because our brain was designed to rest, not to stress. The rest and relaxation, not the fight or flight response. And the more we can channel that, the better our old age will be, which is ultimately what we want. Don't just live longer, live better.
Better. All right.
Yeah.
Dr. Paukole, thank you.